We can go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Vested Interest Resume Summer Career Panel. I'm Senee Shearer Williams, and I'm thrilled to have you all here for our first session. We'll be discussing now, it'll be healthcare and sales. I'm not sure where our other speaker is right now. Hopefully she pops in. But right now, it'll just be healthcare and sales. Today, we're honored to have Toya Aaron, who's a recipient's right director from Trinity Health, and Sash Alagh, who's a former account executive with strategic sales at Nike. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and pass it over to you, Toya. You can go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your career and anything else that you have to say.
Well, thank you, Senee. Thank you again for having me. It's really a great pleasure to be here. My name is Toya Aaron. I am the Recipient Rights Director here at Trinity Health in Livonia. I've been with Trinity for approximately 2 years. Prior to coming to Trinity, if I can go all the way back, I started my career in healthcare as a medical assistant. And I became a phlebotomy supervisor, moved from phlebotomy and became a nurse tech, working at one of the largest cancer hospitals here in Michigan, Karmanos Cancer Institute. I stayed with Karmanos for approximately 16 years. After receiving my master's, I tried to move up in the company. And however, it just was not working. Unfortunately, they never, or I don't want to say they never, the level of where I was trying to go, because I had been there so long, I believe that they only saw me in that position as opposed to seeing me as a person with a master's degree and mass knowledge of what I was doing. So I left. And I left and I went to another company and I stayed at this policy company for about 6 months. And within that 6 months, I get a call back from Karmanos because I stayed contingent. I get a call back and they offered me a position as a coordinator for patient and colleague engagement, where I was advocating for the patients as well as employees on different rights and different positions. I did that for up until COVID. When COVID happened, my position changed a little bit and I started directing volunteers and working in the volunteer service office. Nonetheless, I was not satisfied. I got introduced to behavioral health. Ironically, because my degree is in industrial organizational psychology, a lot of times it gets mixed up in believing that I am a clinical psychologist. Mm-hmm. So it was like, oh, okay, you can work over here as a recipient rights director. And I'm like, okay. But working in mental health has helped me to relate to patients, understanding them. And I talk a little bit more later on, like the different roles that I do in recipient rights, but it's a very promising career. I have to say, I honestly love it. A little fun fact about me, I am the first Black woman to ever sit on Madison Heights City Council in over 56 years. That's it.
Now, next up, we have Sash Alagh.
Thank you, Senee. Yeah, and thank you for having me as well. Hey guys, my name is Sash. I'm from Toronto. For the past 3 years, I've been working at Nike as a strategic account executive. Recently, I actually just left the company within the past month to pursue my own business venture, where I'm starting an AI business that's focused on helping gyms integrate AI into their business. But just to rewind, I started off my career in sales. My first job outside of college was working at FedEx, selling shipping solutions to small to medium-sized businesses. I did that for about a year and a half and then reached the point where I was like, hey, I'm young enough to be doing something I'm passionate about and started thinking about where else I could take my career. And I think it could be a relevant story just for everyone on the call. The way that I actually got into Nike was very unique compared to others. Essentially what that process was I revamped my LinkedIn and I started reaching out to sales directors on LinkedIn saying, hey, my name is Sash. I'm an account executive at FedEx. Can I have 15 minutes of your time? And then one of the directors that I reached out to who was at Nike, she gave me an hour and a half of her time and she connected me with just various people after speaking with her. And then one of the people that I spoke over there referred me to the president of Nike Canada. So the president of Nike Canada was essentially my referral into Nike. And that's actually how I was able to get the job at Nike. My first role was in field sales at Nike, where I was basically managing 150 partners across Canada. So these were comprised of sporting goods stores across the whole country. And then 11 months in, I got promoted to a strategic sales role where I'm working with higher profile accounts, managing a territory of about 10 different accounts within Nike and within Canada as well. So that's just been a little bit of my journey. Recently left the organization. Very tough decision because Nike was a dream company for me. But now I've just started a recent venture where I basically designed a software that can create hyper personalized workout plans and nutrition plans. And I'm selling that software to gyms today. So that's been extremely recent. It's only been within the past month. But yeah, that's a little bit about my career.
So next up, we have the panel questions that we'll jump into. Our other speaker still hasn't joined, so we'll just bypass and we'll move right into the questions. So the first question is, what are the fundamental skills and competencies that are crucial for success in your field, and how can professionals develop these skills? So whoever wants to go first is up to either of you. Oh, wait, Alicia, you're here.
Yes, I was just on mute. I was listening to everyone.
Okay, so we'll go back 1 second. We have Alicia here, so we're going to hear about real estate as well. Okay, there we go.
Okay, is my video working?
I can't, it's working, but I can't see you.
Okay, let's see here.
There we
How
go.
about now?
Yep.
Okay, hi guys.
Hello, hello.
How is everyone?
Doing pretty good, doing pretty good.
Awesome. So I heard everyone giving an introduction. So my name is Alicia Cooley. I've been working in real estate going on 17 years. I started off as a leasing associate here in Michigan. Over the years, I had the opportunity to work for different, some of the largest management companies in property management. And during that time, I was able to build my career. I started off as a leasing agent with a company called Resource Residential. I worked for them for 10 years. And during that time, I wore several hats. I was promoted to a floating leasing manager, a traveling leasing manager, assistant manager, property manager, floating property manager. And during that time, I was able to travel all over the world and work at a lot of Class A communities. So I currently am a community manager over the Greatwater West portfolio. So I manage 15 buildings in downtown Detroit, between Midtown and Southwest Detroit. So it has been a journey, and I've stayed in 6 different states since I started property management, moving around to just work at different, to learn different markets and work at different communities. So I've also worked at student housing communities as well as your traditional market rate communities. I've also managed commercial properties as well.
Great to have you here. Okay, so now we are going to enter the panel questions now. So, okay, again, what are the fundamental skills and competencies that are crucial for success in your field, and how can professionals develop these skills? So, anybody want to take it first?
I'll go first. When I think about it, many times people don't understand the role that I have, because as a recipient, to protect the mental health population. Many times mental health patients are overlooked and people view them as not having certain rights. So years ago, when my mom used to work in mental health, it was different. People got away with a lot of things and they wrote it off as saying, who's going to believe the patients? So they had to develop some type of program, some type of advocacy to help that population. So the skills that I bring, I am mandated by the state of Michigan. Everything that I do comes from the law. I can't just go and make up anything and just say, hey, this is it. The state of Michigan tells me how to roll and what to do and what to say. So, so there's two types of tests that you have to take. You have to take a basic skills 1 and a basic skills 2 test. Excuse me for it. And the classes are generally, the first class is about 3 days, and the second class is again 3 days, but it's probably like a few months later. And you take the courses, and after you take both courses, you have to pass the test with a minimum score of 85% in order to become a rights director or rights officer. They're called different positions in different places. And it's a community that assists and helps all over the Michigan, where we have different people that we can call on, talk to, always call our state representative, and will help us to navigate in case there are situations that where we just don't know how to handle it. Some people view me in the hospital as the ops. I'm told I'm the police because when they see me coming, people feel they're in trouble. So I try to make certain that when I'm out there and I'm talking with people, that I'm not only coming to the unit when a complaint has come about or I have to investigate a situation. I try to avail myself to be available so that they can get familiar with my face and know I'm a friendly person. I'm not out to get anybody. I'm just trying to make certain that the job is done well.
Alicia, Sash.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll jump in. So for sales, I think one skill that isn't really talked about, and I think one thing that people might be misconceptualizing about sales is that you talk a lot in sales, and I very much disagree with that. I think listening is one of the most important skills that anyone can possess, and I think that's an extension of just having empathy. I think when you have those two, those are the two solid ingredients I think that you need within sales. I think the sales environment is really gravitating and shifting towards a consultative type selling environment where I think previously, decades back, it was all about feature dropping. It was always about pitching yourself. And now I think it's a little bit more about being discovery centric, putting your prospect at the center of your conversation. I think another skill that you need to be developing within sales is learning how to research, learning how to leverage analytics, getting feedback from your consumer, getting feedback from your client. I'll give an example. I mean, the way that we adapt sales processes and methodologies in at Nike was, for example, if there was a new trend that came out, for example, tech running. So, for example, if that trend was introduced by New Balance, we would obviously change our sales methodologies and say, hey, for example, if this is a new trend that's taking place, how can we encapsulate this trend to advise our clients that they need to be capitalizing on this trend? So studying trends, I think is another great way of being a great salesperson. And I think ultimately making data-driven decisions. So having conversations with your clients to understand how their consumer is responding, leveraging internal tools like CRM. CRMs are customer relationship management systems like Salesforce, like HubSpot, data visualization tools like Tableau. Another example at Nike, we would always have analytics where we could analyze a client's profile by understanding what their split was between lifestyle versus performance, apparel, footwear, equipment, men's, women's, kids, what their category split is. So having that level of analytics at the forefront, and then just encapsulating all of these different skills and traits that are needed to be a great salesperson, I think is super important. To answer your question, Senee, about how to cultivate these skills, I think that the best way to answer that question is to just make the conversation about your prospect, make the conversation about someone else. When you do that, I feel like you're able to extract all those important details about what a person is looking for. And that's how you develop your listening abilities. That's how you make data-driven decisions. That's how you leverage empathy. So I know there's a lot in there, but I can keep talking forever.
Definitely. Thank you. That's a great answer, Sash. Alicia? Okay. Alicia, are you here? All right. we'll move to the next question. How important is continuous learning and adaptability in your industry, and what strategies do you recommend for staying current and adaptable in a constantly evolving field?
I feel that it's very important to stay abreast of the different laws when it comes to my work, because laws change, situations change. The same law that was written in 2005 is possibly different today in 2024. So making certain that you're accustomed to the laws and knowing what the changes are is important. Making certain that you do your continuing education. We're required to have 36 hours of continuing education within every 3 years. So going to those classes and getting those learnings and networking with other individuals help you to evolve, help you to stay on top of your game so that you're not lost when someone has a complaint. And when I'm speaking of complaints or rights for a recipient in the mental health, I think I should make certain that I let it be known that when I'm talking about rights, they have a right to dignity and respect. They have a right to be free of abuse and neglect. They have a right to have the same civil rights that any other American has. A violation of their civil rights is a violation of their recipient rights. So when I'm advocating for that population, I'm making certain that the law is saying that a person receiving mental health has a right to vote. So with the upcoming election coming, just because they're here in the hospital, in a psychiatric hospital, they do not lose their right to vote. I have to make certain that that right is still being presented to them and they got their vote and their ballots and their voting. Making certain that no one is taking advantage of them because of their population when it comes to certain things like monitoring over their income. You know, you probably have heard in the past where a person has a group home and they have recipients in their home and they're receiving a check, yet that person is taking all of their money and spending it on other things and not the recipient. So making certain that that is protected. So one of the strategies is to always make yourself be known so people know who you are, I believe, that people understand your role, because it is still a new role, although it's been a role since about the past 28 years in society, it is still considered a new role. So many people do not understand the gist of how important it is and how critical it is for the recipient rights person to have unimpeded access to whatever they need. So I think that's one of it.
Seth?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I think specifically, so continuous learning, especially in a sales type context, extremely important. I think curiosity has to be the driving force, especially when you're in sales, because curiosity, I think, it's a catalyst for change. And especially in sales, when you're in such a competitive environment, if you are not number one on the leaderboards, that plays a mental toll on you. And you start asking yourself, hey, like, how can I be number one, right? So asking questions, I think, is huge for continuous learning. And another part to that is leveraging insights from other people, especially when you're in sales. You get to have visibility as to how other people are doing. So that is a huge advantage for you, because now you can actually approach other people and say, hey, you know what? I'm not the best at this, but I understand that you're doing really well. Are you able to teach me? Can I learn something from you? And I think that helps when building relationships internally as well, regardless of what company you're at. In terms of adaptability, a great example of always staying adaptable, and this is something that everyone faced, was the pandemic. Within the context of Nike, we had a period of time for a couple of months where our factory shut down for about 3 months, and we lost 130 million units of production, basically units of product that were never produced. And that was one of the biggest hits that Nike's ever taken. So how do you adapt to something like that? How is your conversation with your clients when they have $1 million order and that's canceled, right? So you have to adapt to circumstances that are not necessarily in your favor. There's always going to be external forces that you will have to deal with. But you always have a choice as to how you can react to any given situation, which I'm a big believer of. Another way to stay really adaptable, I think during the pandemic, everything shifted to e-commerce, to digital, right? So how are we playing into that? How can we advise our clients based on that global shift? So I think, yeah, I mean, like if you're at the forefront of being curious and adapting and reacting quickly and strategically, you're always going to do well.
Alicia?
Okay, so I think it's important to adapt to change. Especially with the industry I work in, things are always changing on an almost daily basis because we want to keep up with the market trends as well as what our consumer want. So I think being knowledgeable and making sure that if you're not knowledgeable in a subject, seeking the knowledge is important. So if you have to take extra additional training courses or like Sash was saying, reach out to people who have the experience to ask them to show you is valuable. Always stand on top of the latest trends. And I also want to piggyback on Miss Tanya a little bit too, because what she said is also valuable with making sure that you're taking the training courses and staying up to date with laws. It's so important, especially in my industry, because I deal with fair housing laws and those are always changing. So we take marketing, fair housing classes on a yearly basis because of that, because things can change based on, the market and the trends.
Well, we'll start with this one. What role does networking and mentorship play in achieving success in your field, and how can professionals effectively leverage relationships for career advancement?
I can
Sash,
jump
you want to
in.
go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll jump in here. So yeah, I'll kick it off with networking, and I'll answer this question in two ways. Number one, with just finding a job, and then number two, how to leverage this within your industry. So when I was networking my way into a job with Nike, that was my first time that I've ever actually networked my way into any job. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that the networking process stops once you get a referral, once you get an interview. And going back to what I mentioned in just at the beginning of this call, is that I don't believe the networking process stops once you get an interview. In fact, that's when you should continue it. And the reason why I say that is because the one sales director that I reached out to that connected me with the president of Nike Canada, once I learned that I got an interview, the most crucial step that I learned that truly what I believe is helped me that got me the job was I followed up with everyone that I previously had coffee chats with or informational interviews with. And I said, hey, you know what? I actually have an interview with Nike. Is there any way that you could provide any pointers? And almost every single one of them provided such value adds, with one person going as far as actually giving me the list of potential questions that the Nike interviewer might ask me. And not only did they help me with that process, but essentially they turned into mentors as well when I was at Nike. So anytime I was dealing with a certain situation, the people that helped me get to Nike, that helped me interview with Nike, were the same people that turned into my mentors when I was at Nike, and they helped me succeed. And just segueing into the next point, which is mentorship, I think the easiest way to accelerate your success in any domain of life is to learn from someone who's traveled the path as you. Because what you can do is that you can avoid their mistakes. And that was just something that I implemented not only at Nike, but at FedEx. When I started off at FedEx, I had about three really good people in my corner, and they would teach me everything that there was to know about negotiation, about analytics, about pricing solutions, about who to network with within other departments to actually get your sales deals over the top. So having people like that in your corner is extremely important. The way that you show value to your mentors is by taking their advice, giving actually getting the results, and then coming back showing them what the result of their advice was. That's how I found that I was mending and building my relationships with my mentors, and I found that I accelerated my success at FedEx by doing that. And I took that same concept and I applied it to Nike. You don't need a lot of people. You don't need 5 to 10 people. You need maybe 2 or 3 good quality people in your corner that you have a good, deep relationship with, and they can significantly change not only your perception or outlook on certain ideas or ways to navigate, everyday work. But I've had people that have changed my life completely. to answer the second half of this question, how do you effectively nurture these relationships, start these relationships? I think is just by starting to ask questions. I think intrinsically people want to provide value to other people, which I think is the reason why we're all having this call. We want to provide value to other people to see other people win. And when you ask for help from someone else, it is very rare that someone says no. Now, obviously, your approach, there's a right approach and there's a bad approach, but when you ask someone for help, I think we're all intrinsically motivated to provide value to other people. So the way that I capitalized or started a lot of my mentor-mentee relationships was just approaching them saying, hey, I don't know a lot, but I want to learn more. And I see that you're doing well. Is it cool if we just have a monthly touch base once a month where I can learn something from you? And I don't think that's a big ask at all. I think it's a very it's a harmless question at most, because you're just asking for their time, right? And you're not asking for a lot of it if it's 30 minutes once a month. And once you do that repetitively, you start to gain value. You start to show your mentors you're getting results from their advice. That's how you build up that relationship entirely. So that's something I've implemented both at FedEx and at Nike as well. And I think it's extremely important to always keep in touch and nurture that mentor relationship throughout your life.
Alicia or Toya,
Can you repeat that question for me?
what role does networking and mentorship play in achieving success in your field, and how can professionals effectively leverage the relationships for career advancement?
Oh, that plays a huge field in your career growth. Definitely, I can thank, I've had several mentors over the years that helped me grow in my career and train me. And when I needed help, I could call them for assistance if it was an area that I wasn't strong in. Even if they were out of town, they would stop what they were doing to help me. So having a mentor is very valuable because they already have the experience. They bring to the table the experience as well as the knowledge that you may be lacking, so they can help catch you up to speed a lot faster than you trying to go gain that experience yourself. So I think it's very valuable to have mentors. And another good thing mentor is great for is references. All great jobs want to contact your references. So that could be your list of references as well, so that when you're trying to go for that new opportunity, you're at the top of the list. Once they call your references and they give you the great review, that can help you open up a door to your next career opportunity. So nurturing that relationship is very important as well. Over the years, my mentors actually lived in different states. We wasn't even in the same states, but over the years, I would stay in contact with them through Messenger, through text messages, through emails, just checking on them, using LinkedIn as a platform as well to stay in contact with people that you may not necessarily be in the same state with. LinkedIn is a great resource for that, as well as finding a new mentor as well.
I think for me, the ideal of mentorship was relatively new. In healthcare, it's a big population, yet it's a small population. So regardless of what hospital that you work in, it's guaranteed that your name will possibly come up and somebody know you. People think that, healthcare is just this, it's like a silo. Everybody knows everyone. But when it comes to mentorship, I was not really abreast of it or ready, because coming up, and I don't know if you all have realized, but I am probably a couple of decades older than most of you on this call. So
we wouldn't have guessed it.
Thank you. So coming up, having a mentor, it was just somebody you bounced ideas off of, and didn't so much look at it as a mentor. But as I started growing in my field and in my career and wanted to do more, I found that I was growing more knowledge from other cultures, other older women that was helping me, that was telling me how to do and what to say and where to go to get the information. And I found that to be really rewarding, because you don't see many people like me at the top in healthcare. So not having those persons to actually bounce information off of was a little difficult. And I
Mhm.
still find that difficulty here today, which is one of the reasons why here at Trinity, we have an African American group. And inside of that group, it's different leaders that are all African American. And we help one another to navigate and ask those right questions on where we can go and how we can move, because we find ourselves reaching the ceiling much faster than someone else.
Mhm.
So just learning how to bypass the ceiling and go over is it's been rough. It's rough. It's and then as a woman, you have to really push yourself to show that you're capable of doing the job that they're asking, because you may get looked over. Whereas what I've learned is a man will come into the position, and I don't want to sound sexist or anything, but a man can come into this position and he'll tell them, I only plan on being here for this amount of time. And if I don't get it, then I'll leave. Where a woman, we will consistently take on the brunt work and keep doing different things. And we may not get that position, but we won't leave because we become complacent and we stick
Mhm.
and stay. So when it comes to, if you want to go into healthcare and you want to succeed, grab every bit of knowledge that you can. If you're starting off as a CNA and you want to be a nurse practitioner, you grab everything that you can. If it's learning how to chart, how to document, the how to multiply a medication, grab every
Mhm.
bit, because one thing a person can't do is knock you for the knowledge that you know. Thank you.
Yes, and to piggyback off what Ms. Toya was saying, I think being a self-starter is also important too, because sometimes, like she said, it's not as easy to get a mentor as you think. So just having the internet as a tool to use with all the knowledge right at your fingertips is also very helpful. Throughout my career, I've had to experience a little bit of what Ms. Toya is saying. So I had to take the initiative to learn a lot of things on my own.
Definitely. The internet and finding things out on your own, it helps in developing. I think it helps in developing those skills as well.
Absolutely.
And then this is our next question. How has technological proficiency contributed to your success, and what emerging technology should professionals in your field focus on to enhance their careers?
Ooh, so this technology has definitely helped with in the career I work in. I work with a lead base. So we use technology to help bring those leads into one pool where we can use that to follow up with our prospects. So over the years, that technology has changed. When I first started working at leasing, we didn't have the technology used, so we used paper. We had black and white cards to track our leads, and we had to write down everything. We had to do paper leases, paper applications. So that took more time. Now that we're utilizing technology, that same amount of time, I can process 10 to 15 applications in that amount of time it was taking me to do one when we didn't have the technology in place, as well as follow-ups. Now we can probably follow up with like 100 prospects within an hour because of the technology we're using to help us with follow-ups versus back in the day when you had to write down everything. It took a lot longer to pull out guest cards and to use the telephone to call each person. Now, because of technology, we can text people, we can send out email blasts all at once. So it is a faster way to get things done, definitely.
What do you know, like what technologies you guys are using, or is it proprietary?
Yeah, so right now we're using a system called CRM and Yardi Voyager.
Okay. Okay.
I started
Well,
off using something called MRI like 15 years ago. So that was like one of the first websites that was built to work around property management. But over the years, they developed different systems like Entrada. You have Yardi. They have one called I Love Leasing. So they have different platforms depending on the need and the size of your portfolio.
well, for me, technology, just like Alicia, everything started off paper, so it is priority. So, I mean, what's the word I'm trying to find? That is not what I was trying to say. Nonetheless, technology, it has helped, but then what happens is when the systems goes down, Nobody remembers how to do the
Nightmare.
work. Like the other day when the system went down, it was hell on wheels around here. Excuse me, but nobody understood how did we manage without a computer? Pen and paper still works. So
Exactly.
I think that once we're learning technology, we should never forget the basic skills that were how to do something because a computer is going to crash and patients still have to get cared for. So it's meant to bring us less stress and to help us to navigate through the charts and working in and documenting and not losing paper files and things like that. Nonetheless, I whenever I'm with the patient, I still write it all down on notes and then transcribe it later. People say, Toya, you're double working. Yep, but if this computer go down, I still got my paper and I can read it.
Sure.
That
Yeah, today within sales, I think tech is incredibly important. If I'm thinking maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago, you'd possibly be going into the yellow pages, getting phone numbers and picking up the phone and dialing and things like that. Today we have CRMs,
Mm-hmm.
we have Salesforce, we have Zscaler, we have HubSpot, where you can put in or basically you can automate like a lead's information through a customer relationship management system, right? So something like that is incredibly important. And I think the role of technology today within sales is that it helps you save time, right? You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be pulling out a pen and piece of paper to write down a lead's name, their contact info, their email, all of that. You can have an automation platform like Zapier do that for you, right? Which it can automate their information, send that to a CRM, and then you have all that information ready to go. Essentially, what I'm trying to say in sales is that you want to be prioritizing the most important, the highest leverage, and the highest ROI activity in sales, which is selling. So you constantly have to ask yourself, the activity that I'm doing right now, am I generating revenue? Am I selling? And if you're not doing that, it's not exactly the smartest use of your time. So I think technology is incredibly important just from a management of information type perspective, as
Mm-hmm.
well as, like I said before, like just making data-driven decisions is incredibly important. When I was at FedEx, whether it was analyzing, a client's information through proprietary software, like the amount of packages that were moving every single day, the service that they were using, whether it was priority overnight, standard overnight, or FedEx ground, and the same thing at Nike. So whether they are basketball focused, what's their top franchise? Is it an Air Force One? Is it a Nike Pegasus? Like that's analytics, that's technology that you can look at and then actually have an informed conversation with your client saying, hey, this is exactly what I'm able to see on my side. What do you think of this? Where should we go from this? What is the future outlook based on these trends? You can have smart conversations just based on data. So I think the role of technology is incredibly important. And I think for the second half of this question, what emerging technologies should professionals in your field focus on? I think AI within the next 5 years is going to completely shift a lot of processes in place that have been taking time. And essentially, what it's going to do is that it's going to save a lot of time from a salesperson's perspective so that they can focus on selling.
that was the 5 questions. Let me. Okay, and this is our final question of the panel questions. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your career, and what strategies have you employed to overcome these obstacles and build resilience?
I would say for me, some of the biggest obstacle I faced in my career is just being third party. I don't own or manage any of the properties I work for. So I ultimately don't make the big decisions or have any input on what happens. So just being under several different leaders and them not always being on the same page as far as decisions, I feel like it's the hardest. And then what you not owning the properties, a lot of times I've been through like where properties are sold, or they may decide to go with a different management company. So then you're constantly moving around. You're constantly moving around to keep your position and to get ahead. So what I've done to navigate through that is just keeping my resume updated, making sure that I'm highlighting all the skills that I have. So if a property manager comes to me tomorrow and say we're selling the property and you won't have a job the next day, I'm prepared to move on and to find a new position.
I think for me, the biggest challenge that I've had in my career is moving from being a line worker to management, to director, letting them know or having people to recognize my skill set. As I said in the beginning, because I started off as a tech, many times after getting my degree, I was still being viewed as a tech and was not being respected to have the knowledge that I knew that I had to bring. So making certain that whatever you do, as I stated, grab every bit of knowledge you can, soak it up, just continually soak, be a sponge, updating that resume. Every time it says, oh, I trained, if they ask you to train 4 people, you're a trainer. I'm an educator. I know how to do this. If they ask you to make a schedule, I'm a scheduler. You were told to go run the coffee downstairs, I'm a transporter. You know, whatever it is in that field, soak up that knowledge, grab hold to it so that when it comes down to building your resume, you have experience in everything that they're asking for. So when that resume shoots out, your skill set shows. And building that resilience, trying not to get frustrated. I think that is one of the biggest things that I had to learn throughout my career is not to get frustrated. Because for a long time, I kept thinking it was me and would get upset. Why can't I get the job? Why can't I do this? Why? But then you had to reinvent yourself and recreate yourself and stay in the faces of those in leadership. When they walk into the room or when you walk in, people should say, oh, you're Toya. I heard about you. Do something. Every time there's a project that is available at work, a committee, you raise your hand and you join that committee. Let your voice be known, and that will help you to grow and to move up in the companies.
Yeah, for me, I would say so. Obviously, within in the context of sales, the biggest one I would say is just facing rejection on a daily basis. It does get better, but when I first started off in sales, I was 16. I was doing door-to-door sales, selling driveway sealing. So you can imagine knocking on doors, 150, 160 houses a day, only for one to say, "Hey, like you can seal my driveway." It's basically painting a new driveway. So I started off that was my introduction to sales, essentially. And I worked a couple of jobs where I'm picking up the phone, I'm dialing 150 times a day. And most of the time, people are just saying, not interested, right? So that's something that was massive for me to, I think, overcome. And it does get better, especially once you get into a company like FedEx and corporate. And just within Fortune 500 companies like Nike, that rejection kind of goes away. But I think that was just one of the biggest challenges that I had to face stepping into sales. And the way that you fix that is uh, by honestly saying, hey, like the way that I progress within sales is by getting rejected. So I actually had a challenge for myself when I first started in sales, saying, hey, Sash, you should get rejected 1,000 times. Like try to get 1,000 not interested on the phone. And I think when you frame it like that, just saying, hey, it's a part of the game, it's a part of the process. You're going to build thicker skin as a result. You're going to be more mentally resilient as a result. That was something that really helped me through. And then anytime I would face, a hard situation, something like that would have built me up through just repeated exposure to rejection, that situations today no longer phase me. So I think it's putting yourself in a scenario where it might feel like you're in a burning house with fire around you, but I think it really what it does is that it builds your mind up. And I think that's incredibly important to just be successful within sales. Rejection is going to be inevitable. And it's a mix of a volume game, and it's a mix of understanding that this process that you're going through is absolutely necessary.
Guys, for those answers. And at this time we have a little bit of time left. We have about 5 minutes left. If anybody in the audience has any questions. If not, I do have a few industry questions to ask you guys, and then from there we can end the call. Does anybody from the audience have any questions? No, no questions.
I actually have a question for everyone. What is the best way you think? What is the best thing you can do to break the glass ceiling? Because I think we, as you know, all of us probably have experienced hitting that. But what's one way to break it?
For me, leaving. I had to
I was
walk
about to say,
away.
is that the only way to get a new job?
Yeah, and
That's sad that we
sounds,
have to do that.
yes. I had went to a seminar one time, and I met this lady, and that was when we were still in school. And I met this lady, her name was Lisa. And Lisa and I talked for a long time. And I was telling Lisa my frustrations and the situations and problems that I was having. And Lisa looked me in the eyes. And after she took her call with me, she said, Toya, I understand your commitment to that company. However, sometimes when you hit a glass ceiling, you have to walk away so that they'll know what they have. And I walked away for 6 months and was called back into a different position. Where prior to walking away, I kept applying for roles after roles, and my application would never even get touched. I was getting a denial before they even said hello to me, because I always felt that even if my resume don't show what it is, once I sit down in front of you, I can talk and you will know that I know my business. So leaving the companies I manifested growth in the different areas of where I went. It may not be the best solution, but it was the best that works out for me. And I've left 3 times and have grown.
And that's how you got what you wanted. Wow.
That's how I got what I wanted. Yes. So yeah.
I can vouch for that as well. Like the 100%, I think that's the right thing to do, especially within, I think recently I was seeing that like Gen Z, 83% of them are classified as job hoppers. So I think people today just don't have the patience, I guess, to stick it through. But as a result, I think people are finding better opportunities, right? So I completely agree with Toya where I think, hey, like the best way for you to really progress in your career and get to a better position is by actually changing jobs. And I think the younger generation today fully believes in that, and I think that is the right play.
Okay.
I would say the next question I have for you guys is, what would you say? How important is a resume in getting the job that you want? How important?
Very important. The resume represents you. Before they know you, they can read the resume. It tells them all about you. So it's almost like your identification card.
Now, to me, I disagree. I feel I like the ideal of a resume, but I don't think that the resume actually tells them everything about you. Because what I've learned, they look for keywords and they look for certain target words. And if those words align in that resume, then you'll get the call. But did it really tell them everything? So I find myself, when I have done my resume, trying to put so much into it that I don't think it's getting looked at. So I had to slim it down and only give so many bits and pieces. But I still don't think it gives everything.
That's true.
Yeah, I gotta disagree. I gotta disagree as well. I think your network is extremely way more important than your resume. And just, I'll give you a real
No,
life
that's true.
experience. I'll give you a real life experience. When I got my first job at FedEx, working sales over there, I think the number was I applied to over 400 companies on LinkedIn, on Indeed, just hitting easy applies as many times as I could. And then the way that I got my
Mhm.
job at FedEx was through a family friend referral. So he was a higher
Mhm.
up within sales, and that's how I got the interview. So I told myself if I was to ever go through the job search process again, I was never going to go through the process of just sending out my resumes to as many companies as possible, but be a little bit more strategic. And then that
Mhm.
ended up working out because I prioritized all of my time into building relationships with people that like I didn't know at the time, building relationships with sales managers, sales directors, account executives at Nike. And then that's how I actually got a job at Nike without ever applying online. So I think just my specific experience for myself, if I was to ever go through the job search process again, I would prioritize all of my time into building a network of advocates, people that can vouch for you. Because once you
Mhm.
get one person to refer you to someone else within their network, which is at the target company that you're applying for, I feel like it's almost a cheat code. Like you get
It's
to skip
golden.
so many steps. And I think, yeah, like going back to the point of resume and ATS, applicant tracker systems, keywords, all of that. I think I read a stat somewhere where 75% of people get rejected from software or like the ATS, the applicant tracker
It's
system.
true. Yeah.
And essentially, they think something's wrong with their resume or they think something's wrong with them. But in reality, you're just being filtered out by a software just because you might not have enough keywords, right? So I
Mhm.
think the best way is to just capitalize on building a great network of people that can vouch for you. And then once you do that, you can skip a lot of the steps that I think a lot of people face when they traditionally apply for jobs just using their resume.
Excuse me, guys. I am so
No,
sorry, but I
that's
have a two
true.
o'clock meeting.
No
I'm
problem.
sorry. I have a 2 o'clock meeting and I need to jump off because it's getting ready to start. It's another Teams meeting.
Okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you
pleasure
so
to
much for
meet
having
you.
me. Pleasure to meet you all. Good luck in your careers. And I will send that questionnaire
Thank
out to you.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all for being here. I do have a few more questions if you have time. If you don't, we can bypass them and um
Okay, I have a few more minutes.
Same.
all right. So the other questions that I have, to the point of the resume, I think it's important on both aspects to be able to
Mm-hmm.
have a presentable resume. I think realistically the most important type of resume is the value-based resume because that presents like what you can add to the company, and then also
Mm-hmm.
being able to build your network and having that document be passed around by who you network with can help you in the long run because they're passing it around but they haven't actually spoken to you, so having a document that can speak to what they're saying about you can also be an advantage.
And I want to piggyback off of that, Senee. You're right, because for me, I keep my resume online at all times. Even if I could be happy in my career, but because I know this industry changes so much with sales and new acquisitions and everything, having that resume for me is key because sometimes employers reach out to me and I'm not even looking for the job just because they found that resume online. They had the right keywords on it. And now they're asking me, do I want the opportunity versus me looking for them? So that's what I like about the opportunity to have the resume as a tool is that I utilize it all the time. Even when I'm working right now, but I do want to have an up-to-date resume to keep online because there might be a better opportunity out here that I haven't even thought about, but they may find me based on that resume.
And then the other questions that I have, what are like 5 things that you think makes a high potential employee or a high
I think being knowledgeable, dependable, trustworthy, um, I think you got to have some charisma about yourself, right? People have to be drawn to you to be successful in sales. And even when you're in a management position, people have to believe in you to follow, right? You're not going to believe in or buy something from somebody you don't believe in. So I think that's important, is just having a good spirit.
Yeah, I think leadership is huge. Are you taking care of your people? Are you giving back? When you
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to help other people, are you making sure you're helping them? I think yeah, trust is absolutely massive. Like even during
Mm-hmm.
my career at Nike, I had a manager that really employed an approach of trust and autonomy, right? Which was massive for me, which helped me develop in a huge way. I think communication will take you so far. I think regardless of what industry you're in, as long as you know how to
Mm-hmm.
communicate, like it will take you to places that you can't even fathom. So I think a lot of people disregard the soft skills and the communication abilities that are needed to just do well today to really be successful. And I think people really need to prioritize having the ability to communicate and articulate yourself clearly. Another trait that I think is really important is likability. Like if you're likable, I think that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
taking you very, very far, especially if you're playing the corporate game and if you're working for big corporations. Things like self-promotion. Are you able to showcase when you've achieved something? Are you letting other people know within senior management that this is a project that I worked on? This is effectively what I produced. Do you know how to
Mm-hmm.
self-promote? Do you know how to work well with other people? And I think the last thing that I think is not talked about a lot, especially in sales, is that you need a team. You need a team of other people that you need to rely on. There are so many times where I can think of deals that were closed as a result of the competencies and expertise of people within other departments, whether that was customer
Mm-hmm.
service, whether that was technology, whether that was marketing. So having a strong network of people that you can rely on in other departments outside of your own function, I think is massively imperative.
Definitely.
Well, that is all the questions that I have for you guys, and I thank you and I appreciate you guys for being a part of this today. This was our first session, and I very much so thank you for participating. And I look
Thank you for
forward,
having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
no problem. I look forward to connecting with you guys and maybe working on some things down the line in the future if you're interested. And then other than
We
that,
are
I'm
Yeah.
definitely interested.
And then to the participants, we appreciate everyone's participation. And I would like to offer a tailored resume to all the participants with the donation of a school uniform or monetary value. And in that greatly benefits my sister who unfortunately passed away
Mhm.
a couple months ago.
Yes, ma'am.
She left
You all
behind
right?
school-age children, and we're going
Okay.
to try to raise donations
You doing
to
all right today?
buy uniforms for her children. So
Okay, we can definitely do